mic on these headphones. Okay, thank you very much. So now I'm going to share the presentation again, and then we'll start. Thank you for being so patient. So basically, the topic was inspired by two things. One thing is the fact that many learners, adult learners of English that I teach, because I teach at the faculty and I consider these learners adults in a way, say that, whenever I ask them about their previous experiences with English and how they would kind of, evaluate their own proficiency, they say that they understand very well, that they read very well, but they actually um, always say, I'm not that good at speaking, or I don't like speaking, etc. So we see that despite the fact that we have had this communication approach like for so long, there is still this, problem with actually some students, and it's not even some, but actually quite a lot students being reluctant to speak um, or thinking that they cannot speak English. So the other reason is right here in front of you, and that is the book that my colleague and I have just recently published. It's called Teaching Speaking to Young Learners of English as a Foreign Language. It was published by my Faculty of Education, and this is the QR code and the bit.ly link for the online free version of this book. So you cannot find it in press. It's only online, very environmentally friendly and user friendly. So this is the book, and I will, during this webinar, I will actually present some parts of this book to you. Although the book deals with young learners, this is actually going to be a general webinar about speaking skills, and what speaking includes, what it means, and actually how it develops in learners, regardless of their age. So, you know, what does it mean to speak? Generally speaking, it means to kind of build and share some kind of meaning with others through the use of verbal and non-verbal symbols. Um, in terms of language learning, it is one of 4 language skills. It is the active or productive language skill. And some say that it's even the most difficult skill to acquire, because it means that you need to, use the language and use it online and use it like very uh, at the moment that you are actually speaking, that's when everything happens. In writing, which is also a productive skill, there is time to think about it, etc. Reading and listening are passive skills, so-called recipient skills, where you actually receive some information, and here you have to produce it. I'm going to start with a bit of theory, and it's going to be two approaches which are important for today's practice, and that's cognitive approaches or models of speaking and social cultural approaches. We'll also discuss some factors that influence the development of speaking. And if you're wondering why, like why theory, well, because it is going to help us understand what's happening in the brain of us, our students, or any person who tries to speak language, and more importantly, who tries to speak a foreign language. Um, so first, let's start with the cognitive approaches to speaking development. The very word cognitive means that they draw knowledge about the mind and brain. So language is not the only cognitive ability that we have, which means that it's kind of immersed in other cognitive abilities. And we study like in cognitive approaches, people study what happens in our brain when we speak. Language is seen as inventory of symbolic units that consist of some kind of form, which can be phonological form, something you hear, or words, something you see, or the physical kind of existence, or the mental image of what it is, and the meaning, right, of that word. Symbolic units can be very complex or less complex. They can be abstract or less abstract. Anyways, there is a mental image of something, and then we, you know, language is added to this mental image as some kind of signifier, something we use to signify something that we have in our heads. The first cognitive approach that I'll discuss here is Tomasello's usage-based approach, which is actually discussed in terms of language one, or the acquisition of our mother tongue. So basically, what happens when a baby, starts communicating with their parents and then starts using the first maybe syllables, stuff like that, first words, and then starts, continues communicating more and more. And then what happens is that we get, people who actually speak with each other. What happens here with the babies is they actually hear some utterances that parents are saying, and they read their intentions. So, at the beginning, when it's a baby, it's like, I love you, a kiss, or, they're reading the intentions of their parents. And as they grow older, there is more and more information that they are exposed to. They hear these utterances, they segment and store the information. So it all happens in their brain without awareness about these things. And then the brain starts computing, creating schemes, like filling some schemas or slots with the new information. And then the child knows that, they will say, I'm going, but then they also realize that they can say, I'm walking, etc., etc. The more something repeats, the bigger habit it becomes. And also, children's brains compute like when something is not being said, not just what is being said, but also what is not being said at certain moments. And that's how they learn to speak. In terms of foreign language, if you remember, there's this natural approach which claims that exposure is like enough and that children will learn language through just being exposed. Well, doesn't really happen that way. There are some other factors that are very important in second language learning, but definitely some of the things are quite similar to first language learning. Our brain also computes, but we already have mental images in our head of apples, chairs, parents, birds, whatever, but we just, new concepts get acquired or like just get pasted to these images. I'm being a bit metaphoric, and I'm trying to explain this in a very simple way, um, which is kind of based on science but not really scientific, but like popular, so that we can understand it. Which means that according to Tomasello, and of course we see it daily, and that's why we say that we need to read to children when they're little. We had to expose them to language a lot, etc. Exposure is crucial. Whether we look at this metaphorically as puzzles, that need to be put together, um, to combine something, or that are dismantled and then later combined in different ways, or we think about it in terms of neuroscience as the synapses that start firing, etc. It's like, um, any way we look at it, exposure is crucial. The same goes for foreign language as well, which we'll see later on. Then the second model, which is also very interesting, is so-called Level's psycholinguistic model, also for L1 speakers, or describing how L1, what happens in our brains when we speak the first language. And this model is also called the blueprint of a speaker, and it describes speaking as a set of mutually codependent complex processes. So this is how it goes. At the very now, at this moment, when I'm speaking, all of these things happen in my mind. Like those are milliseconds. But what happens is described in phases. Like first phase is the conceptualization phase, where you actually think about, you think about the message or what you're trying to say, and it is very language bound, because without the language, who knows whether we would be able to think, right? Then there is this formulation phase, which is like my brain choosing words, lexical content, choosing structures, so grammatical content, and choosing phonological content. And then articulation itself, like the overt speech or the things that I'm saying, that's this third phase that you are hearing. But also what happens simultaneously is self-monitoring, which means that I myself pay attention to what I'm saying and monitor my speech. That's why I repair myself sometimes. That's why, I need to be very concentrated. So if you ever wondered why you're so tired after teaching, this is why, because all of these things like happen in our brain. And allegedly we even lose weight when thinking and speaking. So um, okay, let's see this about this conceptualization phase. Since this is language one that we were talking about, let's see what happens in the second language. So conceptualization, as you can see, you find information in your brain, in your memory, and you select information from procedural and declarative knowledge. What is that? Declarative knowledge is the knowledge about something. So I know that, for example, ball is a word, and I know that it consists of four letters, B-A-L-L, and I know that it is pronounced like that, and so on and so on. So all the, things that I know about something, whereas procedural knowledge is the knowledge that we could compare to riding a bike, where you just, do something. It's this functional actual knowledge that we have. Um, what could go wrong in L2 during this phase? This is very important, because this is where sometimes our students get stuck. They don't know what to say. Like they don't know what, what they could say about this topic. They have nothing to say about it. So they're not even, close to uh, selecting the information that they're trying to share for whatever reason. Those reasons could be multiple, like they don't want to participate, they're too shy to say something, whatever. Uh, Reason can be psychological or any other, or simply the fact that they don't have enough knowledge about the topic so to continue the conversation. What would be helpful, of course, is to prepare students for speaking tasks through like motivating them for particular topic, preparing the knowledge they actually need in order to talk about this topic, discuss it, or say something. The next phase is this formulation phase, where your brain prepares this lexical, syntactic, and phonological content. What could go wrong here in second language is that there is not enough content, right? So, for example, they cannot remember some word, or, they don't know how to combine words in a sentence. phonological content is like, pronunciation and how to pronounce certain words, etc. Of course, again, that is why we teach a lot of vocabulary, especially in primary school, because this is the basis for speaking and for using language functionally. The same goes for grammar, where we actually expose children and teach them a lot of language chunks, a lot of structures, repeating over and over again until they become a part of, so to say, procedural knowledge, and they actually retrieve them very easily from memory. Then this articulation or overt speech phase. Overt speech is the opposite of inner speech. When we talk to ourselves, this is when we actually express our thoughts. What could go wrong here during this phase is actually all the things that could go wrong during any phase. Our students uh, can't say something, or during their speech somebody stops them, or they get confused, um whatever, and then they have to go back at the beginning and start rethinking, or they get scared, or they don't want to be laughed at by their peers, so they just shut up, although they could say something, they don't want to say it. Different motivation strategies are always helpful. And helpful is actually knowing the reasons why something happens. So we teachers, as you well know, we have to have eyes like on different parts of our heads, and different kinds of eyes that see inside our students, not just the outside. The last thing, self-monitoring, is especially difficult for second language learners, especially when they are younger. As we grow older, we get better at this, and also we kind of um, develop cognitively to be able to do this. But sometimes, it's quite difficult. They say that some research has shown that we should not be afraid of these repairs in somebody's language, because more repairs is kind of connected to better proficiency, which means that somebody is finally aware of the language, and then they make more repairs because they actually are able to self-monitor and check and correct their speech. These self-monitoring techniques also something that we teach, but again, slowly and with time. Which of these processes in this Level's model are actually automatic in L1? What do you think? Which ones are automatic? Which happen this way, like bike riding, without much thinking about that? Can anybody guess or write in the chat? I don't see any answers. Maybe something's wrong with my chat box, but the first is automatic. Okay, all of them. Formulation and articulation. That's right. Okay. Yes. So the formulation and articulation are actually automatic, whereas conceptualization and self-monitoring are not, according to Level. Um, but that's L1. What about L2? I don't think that any of these is necessarily automatic, especially at early stages of learning. Later on, they become automatic, or we see that some processes for formulation articulation automatic for some students who are very proficient, but basically those who are not struggle with everything. So second language is quite different from the first language. And I know that not because of English, but because of my German. Um, okay, so the third set of cognitive theories is so-called complex system theories. I also will just describe them very shortly, and I apologize for that. But this is like seeing language as a system, which consists of many subsystems, but is also a part of other systems. So language is not like some patch in our minds, but it's like connected to all different um, systems in our minds. It's like, and it's not just connected to knowledge that we have, but also feelings, emotions, our social self, and other systems. Um, what is important here is that, you know, learning language, when language development or speaking development is very non-linear, which means that not everything is going to happen linearly for all the people. It's very self-organizing, and it's under the influence of other systems. And one little thing can have the butterfly effect, so to say, like it can change everything. They studied like two twins, and the experiment conditions were pretty much the same for both of them. They went to they like had the same lessons with the same professor, etc., etc. But the learning results were still different, although those are twins and they should like be the most similar people of all, right? But still, they had different learning results in terms of speaking, which means that, you know, speaking is actually development is actually very individually owned process. Everybody has their own way. It is both encouraging and discouraging sometimes, but it is good to know that, because what children cannot do today, um, we still have to continue trying, and you know, a day will come when they will be probably able to do something if they stay interested and motivated, etc. Um, I would say that for actually all the knowledge and all the learning, you just are not ready sometimes for certain things, and then all of a sudden you are ready, right? And you get it and you understand it. And that's my whole educational experience is that, you know, there comes the time when you're ready for certain things. And just shortly about social cultural approaches, because they are important for teaching English. You know that curriculum has this third domain, which refers exactly to that. So one part of researchers said that, you know, it's okay, processes, neuroscience, how language develops, etc., etc., but we should also study language as means of socialization and see what, you know, what we need to teach for children or learners of English to be able to use it as means of socialization. So what are the social, what are the cultural aspects of speaking? And there is this whole field of research which actually covers that. What we got from that is that, you know, we are now aware that we have to teach kids different discourse strategies, like different registers. What is the way that you're going to speak to your friend? What is the way that you're going to speak to your parents, your teachers, the headmistress? Um, then, you know, different cultures and how they express themselves and what we have to know about other cultures in order to speak to them successfully. Um, it discusses also different social circumstances or power relations to the study of language, like, you know, what are the things that we say that actually discriminate other people, and we are not aware of that. Today, we are quite aware of these things, but in the past, we were not so aware of this fact. So these are also some things that are incorporated in teaching speaking. How much can you actually do about that depends on how old your learners are, but still there are things that you can teach even the first graders or the second graders, like, you know, asking them to call you Miss whatever, because, that's how they do it, or teaching them to take turns, like wait for your friend to finish their sentence and then you start, etc., etc. These are all different discourse strategies that they would need. And now let's move on to the development of speaking. This is not going to be really, there will not be many slides. Everything will be on one slide because everything is like equally important. Um, Fluency is the final aim, actually, of teaching speaking, right? So, what is fluency? This particular definition says that it's an ability in the second language to produce or comprehend utterances smoothly, rapidly, and accurately. Okay, so this is all fluency. And when they measure the fluency, that's what they measure: how many times you stop, how many pauses you make, how long your utterances are. Like, is it one word, 9 words for young learners? Later on, they get like bigger. Um, and how much you have to think before you say something, how accurate you are, etc. Of course, fluency is work in progress. And if you think about language in general, it's work in progress both for your mother tongue and for your foreign language, because some people, I have some friends who actually faint when they have to give presentations. We are teachers, so we are so used to speaking in public, but there are people who just cannot do it. It's not related really to their fluency. They are usually fluent, but that's what they may seem to other people as not really fluent when they start giving presentations because of these psychological factors. So it's also a very difficult term to kind of pinpoint. So what influences whether you will become fluent or not in a second language? Well, first of all, you have to have some prerequisites for speaking, which is this declarative and procedural knowledge that I mentioned, which is the world knowledge. If you know nothing about politics or whatever, you would not be able to participate in the conversation because you wouldn't know what to say. You need a vocabulary for that. You need grammar. Um, and there is this thing, spoken versus written grammar. You can read about it in the book. It's not really necessary here. And then, phonetic plan, or, having actually the sounds of other languages ready at disposal for usage, etc. Those are prerequisites for speaking. And then there is environment, like how much input, how much exposure have you had? Uh, let's compare German and English as a foreign language in Croatia. Why are children so successful in English and not as successful in German? I know for my part, so I wouldn't like to generalize on my example, but I was not exposed to German as much as I was to English. And I actually never got so like proficient in German. Um, then social and cultural context is very important things. Whether this is the culture in which language is seen as an asset, as an important thing or not. Um, for example, in Croatia, we live in a country which is a tourist country. So from very early on, kids start saying, I have to be able to speak English because one day I will meet foreigners, etc. So we live in a cultural context which supports actually language learning. Social context is very important as well. And when we talk about social context, we can talk about a formal school context where, for example, the atmosphere is such that kids are afraid to speak because they are afraid of what their peers might think about them. And then it hinders them. It hinders their speaking development because they don't speak enough. And you learn how to speak through speaking only, not any other way. Formal instruction is also very important, how it goes. Like the other day, a student told me that she had different teachers in high school, like one teacher for 2 years and then another one for another 2 years. And this first one didn't just talked to like the most proficient students, a couple of students in the class. They like did a lot of speaking. The others were quiet all the time. And then in the third grade, she got a different teacher who wanted them all to speak. So she was so anxious, like sweating, not knowing how to say something. It was a quite an awful experience to start speaking finally. But then in 2 years, she says that she made so much progress because of that. And now she wonders if she never met this teacher, whether she would be actually studying English today, because this teacher was very important for her speaking development. Um, and then, you know, all of these things can be like perfect, but there are learner related factors as well. Some students are kind of, let's say that like this, like more talented for language. This is the concept is called language learning aptitude, where they actually it consists of many constructs and factors like phonetic coding ability or sensibility to grammatical structures, etc., etc. And allegedly, it is something that is also something that we are born with sometimes. It can develop. It's not, like that's the way you are and you can never learn. But some children are just a bit more prone to uh, remember things that are language related easily and acquire language more easily than others. Then there are individual differences, such as gender differences. For example, girls, according to some research, learn informally, so not in school, but outside school, from music and movies, whereas boys learn more from gaming, from playing games. Um, ch- uh, Girls are also like more academic. They thrive better in the formal context, whereas boys not really. They actually learn much more from informal context. Um, then, for example, willingness to communicate is also very important. Like, somebody doesn't like to communicate for zillions of reasons. Like when they become teenagers, first, when they're little, they like to talk about themselves, like all the time. And teachers know so much information that they don't even want to know about, their children in class. But later on, they just stop sharing. They don't like to speak. They don't want to talk about their emotions, God forbid, or something like that. So, and it's not just that, but it's also very individual. Some people are extroverted and they will communicate a lot. Some are not. Some would just keep quiet and listen, etc. Anxiety is an issue as well, and a lot of children suffer from this language anxiety and anxiety of publicly speaking the foreign language, especially as they grow older. That's Professor Mihajlović Jigunović's research, which tells us that. Also, self-concept changes, um, or, they think that they are not as good as somebody else, and then they are not willing to communicate, etc. So all of that is actually important for this, for both for articulation, formulation, speaking phase, and monitoring phase. So this is all like very, very um, connected. And that's why I kind of like this complex systems theory. Um, Although it's chaotic and you cannot like draw any like conclusions that would turn into recipes, do this, do that, and everything will be great. It actually explains best what happens in all of us when we learn and try to speak a different language. What is the teacher's role in the development of speaking? Although at this point, it seems like, so if everything is so chaotic, what are we even doing there? Can we be of any help? Yes, you can, of course. So first of all, um, careful choice of materials is very important. First of all, materials need to be age appropriate, both in terms of topics and what is it that students will want to talk about, and what is it that they have knowledge of, right? It needs to be suitable for their needs, for their proficiency levels. It needs to be relevant for your learning objectives, so what you're trying to teach, for your outcomes, actually. It needs to ensure engagement, motivation, etc., which is very often very connected to the topics that we choose. And above all that, so this is just like uh, the content which is like related to the language that we're trying to teach, but also this material needs to be such that it develops critical thinking, cultural awareness, suitable for differentiation, maybe inclusive, maybe integrating other skills. Um, and also, it needs to be methodologically designed with a lot of scaffolding. And now, here on the right is a page from Footsteps textbook, which I authored with my colleagues. Uh, um, And this is an example of actually how we lead actually learners through many different scaffolding activities, and then they are actually asked to speak. So number 7 is do a role play. Before that, there is a lot of things that actually lead them towards this. So first of all, we build some vocabulary, then we talk about this topic for them to get some knowledge about it, and to share ideas, to hear other students' ideas about it if they didn't have any. Um, and then reading and thinking about, what could be the reasons for this or that, giving some reasons for being a single child, and then let's do a role play. And then now they have all of this at their disposal, and it leads to speaking. It's even, either considered free speech or if there is some kind of a model, they can follow the model and then add some um, free speech on their own. There are also useful expressions that they can use in this role play. So this choice of materials is actually quite important. Then, the methods and the tasks that we use in the classroom. I had like many times I had lessons which I would like prepare very well, at least I thought so. And then I would do something, and I would go out of the classroom later on, and I was so unsatisfied. Like they were reluctant to speak. Why? Like the activities were so great. I thought that I prepared very well for that. Or like, why is it that always the same students that speak? Why cannot I get all the others to speak? Or, any other question that bothered me when I would leave the classroom. And I learned and I acquired it as truth, and it helped me actually develop as a teacher this idea that it's usually me, I'm the problem. So I do the same lesson in 2 different classes. One of them is they're totally different. The one class is silent, the other one is very chatty. And with the chatty ones, everything is so, wow, great. And then the silent ones is like, you know, it's totally different. So what can I do to make this silent class speak as well, share as well, etc.? So I would then change things for them. I would do something different. I would find ways to make them speak as well. It's frustrating, yeah, I know. But that's unfortunately what our job is like. Like we are there to engage, motivate, find ways, etc. Of course, there are extreme cases when everything you try doesn't lead to a certain result, but we must admit that those cases are really, really rare. Of course, our ability to motivate is important, and our ability to understand the needs of our students and to use differentiation. And now here are some pieces of advice that kind of worked for me, okay? First of all, I would always like get to know my students, know what their interests are, etc. That would make like communication much easier. Um, I would adapt my whys. So why do we need to do that to their age? And then I would kind of invent reasons why something is important, depending on how grown up they are and how whether they're able to understand these whys. Let me give you an example. Um, for young learners, you can even say, if you do this, that will make me so happy, and that works. But, with the seventh graders, eighth graders, high schoolers, mm, who knows? And then you choose some other reasons why they should do something. They see us very well. So um, I always tried being like respecting them. I always imagined like those kids are going to be doctors one day, and I might even end up there, or they're going to be, I will meet them one day, who knows where, especially because we live in Osijek, it's a small town. So you know uh, the way I would like them to treat me in the future is the way I'm going to treat them right now, even though they are children. And that worked. Also, I realized that not all, everything that is, I think, is funny is actually funny. So I started changing my sense of humor, and instead of being sarcastic, I would use rather be auto-ironic and joke about myself rather than others. And I also started doing that with my friends, not just, as students. It changes a lot, to distinguish between humor and sarcasm. Giving meaningful feedback is so important for motivation, being fair, and many, many other things. Um, in terms of needs of our students, it's very efficient to find ways to differentiate the topics without them being time or energy consuming. And a few pieces of advice are also in the book, so you can check it out if you have time. It's okay to be at different levels of learning a language. It's not the same as I don't know, history or biology, where you have to learn exactly this in this semester, or month, or whatever. Language is tricky, You start at some point, and it's impossible to skip immediately to like so much better position. It happens slowly. So um, this we have to accept the fact that there are different levels of learning, and that each progress is actually um, for an applause. Encouraging the atmosphere of mutual help and understanding is also something that worked for me. uh, in terms of talking time, which is also something that we cover in the book, and I'll just go shortly over it. we underestimate our talking time. We think that we talk less than we actually do. This is a German study which showed that teacher talking time is like 50.5% and student talking time is 23.5. And I realized that, and then I started monitoring myself in terms of how much I speak and how much I let my students speak. I started making charts like, you know, whether every student spoke in the class each and every time that we met. um, I started when devising a task, I started thinking about, okay, could I switch that to somebody else so that I don't speak but students speak instead, etc., etc. So I just started paying attention. Of course, we have to speak a lot, but you know, sometimes uh, we could uh, speak less and let students speak more, but we're so used to being in charge that we don't actually do that. The research says that individual participation is actually linked to individual achievement. The more we speak, the more we do something, better we learn. Of course, error treatment is what we should do very carefully because students become anxious quite easily about their mistakes when speaking, and they don't want to participate. So error, show them this video if you find it on Instagram, which shows like it's also from a research like, I don't know, in the 60s or 70s, where making a mistake um, is shown through the synapses which start lighting. Like when making a mistake, you actually learn. It's very motivating. Um, uh, it's very actually encouraging. You know, mistakes are also actually a way towards learning because you realize what your mistake was and then you learn. And finally, of course, we as teachers who need to develop all the time. I know that we hear these speeches over and over again, like, you know, you should work on yourself to become a better teacher. We attend different webinars, seminars, conferences, whatever. But it is actually true because this is a quote from the book that our professionalism is our pride and shield. um, which means that if I know what I did and know why I did it, I am much safer from complaints of all kinds. And we know that we are under a lot of public pressure and a lot of all types of pressures. But you know, if you have reasons and you know what your motivation was for choosing this particular activity over the other, then you are a bit safer. So we need to continue learning, test new approaches, keep giving feedback, and many, 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 many other things. Um, so basically, uh, that's it. And this was just a glimpse into all the topics that you can find in the book. I hope you found it interesting, especially this theoretical part, even though it's sometimes maybe overwhelming, but theory is very much connected to practice, and many ideas from theoretical approaches spill into the practice. And that's why they start changing the curriculums and giving you more and more new tasks, etc. But it's good for you to know, you know, these things so that you can say, yes, I know how learners learn, and you know, so you can decide actually autonomously in your classroom what you think is best for your learners. This is the book again and the QR code if you want to actually open it later on, save it somewhere for whenever, and check it out a little bit. Also, I would like to announce uh, the workshop, which is related to this. So this webinar is a bit more theoretically based, theory based, and now the workshop, more speaking, more learning, which will consist of a lot of actually tasks, which will enhance opportunities for your students for speaking and speaking development. So if you are at Hoopa, check it out there. It's in like 7 days and 23 hours and 30 minutes. If not, I will also be giving this at different um, councils. What are they called? ŽSV, Županijska stručna vijeća, county councils. So invite me if you want to. And this is now like a happy moment for all of you because this is the end of my presentation. Also at Hoopa, I will be giving the presentation with my colleague, dear colleague Lidia Sharavanya. It's going to be about questions, like how to teach kids, like to ask questions, and plenty of activities and games with questions. So come and see us as well. It's on Saturday in 8 days. And that's all. So I'm ready for the chat and questions if there are any. I'm afraid I don't really hear you, so I would appreciate it if you could write your questions or comments in the chat. Also, I would like to thank Školska knjiga for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you being here. It means a lot. It's like evening. Can I turn on the camera? Yes, I can. I will just stop the presentation now. I did turn on my camera, but it's not working. I don't know why. Let me see. Oh, here I am. Hi. Oh, it was off the whole time. I apologize for that. I didn't realize it because we tried switching the microphones all the time, so somehow the camera switched as well. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Also, Sanya sent you, I think, the link. Yes, add some meat to the theoretical part. That's it, definitely. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Oh, I haven't even seen that there's like 77 of you. Wow, that's great. That's really lovely. Yes, thank you, and see you at Hoopa, as Sanya says. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really love Hoopa meetings. Hopefully you will all be there. And yes, if not, see you some other time at some of your council meetings or someplace else. Thank you so much. My editor, Sanya, is here in the comments, so you can also contact her for whatever you need. My email, I think I put it somewhere on the slide, so if you have any suggestions, comments, if you would just simply want to reach out, please do.